868 and we finished the whole flipping Old Testament. Thank you, Jesus. Whoever the heck that is. So Zechariah was a good pal of Haggai, who we read about yesterday, and they're alive at the time when the exiles have returned to Jerusalem from Babylon to start to rebuild the city. Since they got exiled in the first place because they turned away from God, Zechariah starts by saying it's time to turn back to God and God will return to them. So it all seems pretty normal, and then Zechariah starts having some crazy dreams. First, the guy gallops around the whole world, and then some horns appear and get smashed to pieces because they represent enemy nations. Then in chapter 2, a guy measures around the walls of Jerusalem so he knows how big they need to be when they're made of fire. Man, I gotta get me some of those. Then a priest gets a load of clean clothes to symbolise that his sin has been taken away, and then Zechariah gets confused about a load of lampstands. Is this suddenly a trip to IKEA? The main thing is that he encourages Zerubbabel the priest not to be discouraged that they're starting again, and he tells them that it's all by God's strength anyway, not his own. Then a scroll flies around, demolishing the houses of thieves, and a woman gets stuffed into a basket and flown around by angels. Man, he must have had cheese before he fell asleep. There's another call for justice and mercy in chapter 7, and then in chapter 8, God promises to restore Jerusalem again. Then in chapter 9, it looks like there's a new king on the horizon who likes donkey rides. He sounds like a fun guy. And after God's completely restored them with his new king, God promises to get rid of their useless leaders who don't really care about them at all. Chapter 12 talks about everybody weeping for someone that's been pierced, and for some reason it goes alongside everybody's sin being taken away. Oh, there's also some really sketchy parenting. Again, the whole book ends with the promise that God will restore Jerusalem and protect his people and punish their enemies. Oh, sometimes by giving them rotten eyeballs. The last book of the Old Testament is Malachi, and it's addressed to the same people as Ezra and Nehemiah after they've settled into the new city that they've rebuilt. It's kind of not going very well though. God pleads with them to worship him properly and to stop divorcing their wives so they can marry women who follow other gods. He also wants them to bring the money into the temple that they're supposed to so they can sustain the whole place. The whole of the Old Testament ends with the promise that evil guys are going to get their comeuppance, but the good guys will flourish if they turn their hearts back to God. Tune in tomorrow for a guy who I've heard likes donkey rides.